bringing you key insights, tips, and advice from the brightest minds in the Canadian franchise industry. This is the Franchise Canada Chats podcast. Welcome to the Franchise Canada Chats podcast, where we take you into the world of franchising. Our interviews are with franchisees, franchisors, and industry leaders who give on-the-pulse expert advice and share their franchising insights and experiences. I'm your host, Stephanie. This is Season 3, Episode 8. In this episode, we feature Demetre Eliopoulos, Senior Vice President and Managing Director of Public Affairs at Angus Reid Group. He shares advice as a public opinion expert about how Canadians have been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic and how they've changed their lives and the ways they would like to be communicated with. Here, Demetre explains how Canadians' jobs and finances have been impacted by the pandemic, what businesses they're interacting with most, how they feel about advertising today, and much more. This episode was adapted from Demetre's keynote presentation titled Consumer Insights Today, Understanding the Perceptions and Needs of Canadians in a COVID-19 Environment, as part of the Canadian Franchise Association's Business Recovery Summit Series. The month-long series of webinar presentations took place throughout October. You can learn more at cfa.ca. Enjoy the episode.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today, and thank you to the Canadian Franchise Association for having me here to speak. My name is Demetre Eliopoulos. I'm the Managing Director of Public Affairs and the Head of Research of the research group. So today we're going to be talking about public opinion among Canadians and general market research sentiments. And I guess, we'll start off with asking why. Why is this important to talk about today? And, the long story short, it's because all of the work that we've been doing for years for clients like yourselves, and a lot of the work that you've accumulated, learning about the behaviors, the values, the spend of Canadians, everything changed overnight. And I can't think of a single event that's happened where every single Canadian overnight has changed everything about themselves. And so all of this accumulated knowledge that we've had over years has suddenly gone out the window, and we needed to quickly reorient ourselves to understand what's the new landscape and how do we adjust to it. A quick background on the data you're about to see. Early in March, and this is right around the March 12th, where everything just shut down, we realized that things were moving and things were moving fast. So we immediately launched a weekly monitor of public opinion among a representative sample of Canadians, and that's what you'll see. With the intent, not so much from a public policy or a political view that you tend to see a lot in the headlines, but it's more from a market perspective, a behavioral perspective, a sector perspective. And what we did is we gave this to our clients, our relationships, and a lot of people who are just interested to understand how their business needs to adapt. So I'm going to be showing you that information, and we'll need to go through it fairly quickly today. But just know that my contact information is on the last slide. If you are interested in receiving this on an ongoing basis, we're still putting this out bi-weekly. Please reach out to me. There's no cost attached. It's just something that we wanted to do to help Canadian businesses orient themselves for the new environment. And here we go with the data. So as I said, this is an ongoing bi-weekly monitor that we do. It's a general population, roughly 1,500 Canadians doing an online survey. It's represented by all age, gender, region, just to make it as representative as possible. What we'll be talking about is, and again, these are sort of layered in terms of how do we understand the market? How do we understand Canadians? How do we empathize with what they're going through in order to make the proper business decisions? So we'll first talk about what is it that they're going through? How do they see the pandemic? How do they see their lives within the pandemic? How scared are they? 2, what's their personal finances in this environment? Are they getting better or worse? How are they adapting? 3, behaviorally, what's the day-to-day like? What are they occupying their time with? And frankly, what are they spending their money on? 4, and this is always the burning questions that we get from our clients. What do we say to the market? What is it that Canadians want to hear? Is it even okay to talk to them, or is it sort of a sensitive time and we should just back off? And then 5, we'll touch very quickly on what does the future hold? And that's not to say that I have a crystal ball on what's going to happen, but this is the perception of Canadians in terms of what they think is going to happen when the pandemic ends. So let's just jump right into it. The current landscape. First, we talk talk about stress, and we ask this usually on a 4-point scale, going from very stressed to not at all stressed. But because of this particular situation, we needed to talk about extreme levels of stress. And as you can see here, 22% of Canadians saying that they feel very or extremely stressed. Here's the data in tracking format. And behind that, you can see the number of new cases that's happened in Canada every week. So the red being the extreme or level of stress or very stressed. You can see the high point was very early in March, but overall it's a relatively flat line, going to show that Canadians are fairly stoic about this. They adapted very quickly, and then from there, even though 22% is still, a significant 1 in 5 Canadians saying that they feel extreme or very stressed about this, it's been level as the pandemic has gone on. What are they worried about? And again, we talk on that more extreme side. Extreme to very concerned about the following people getting sick. And you can see it's not about themselves personally. It's about their older parents. It's about their children. That's where the focus is. So it's not really about me. I'm not worried about me getting sick. It's the people around me. This is a big one that came out of the last one, and I think this is sort of very indicative of where we're all at. And I think there's an extent to which many of us understand this, but I think this is pretty startling to say that 50% it's a 50-50 breakdown on Canadians who say my life is still moving forward, or I feel like my life is on hold. So 1 in 2 Canadians saying that my life is on hold during the pandemic. That's a pretty major finding. Canadians are not living their lives, and they don't think of themselves living their lives as normal. So, and you can see on the right-hand side, we do a bit of a demographic breakdown, and it's not surprising. Ontario and Quebec are most likely to feel like their life is on hold because that's where the majority of the outbreak has been. And then also, of course, those who are over the age of 55 who feel a little bit more vulnerable than the rest of the population. So we also ask, are things getting better or are things getting worse? And we ask in Canada, are things getting better or worse? We ask globally, are things getting better or worse? And you can see in the back, we've also put the number of new cases in Canada. And so these lines are things getting worse. The dark blue one being in Canada, are things getting worse? And you can see that what's interesting, that the Canada line very closely aligns with the number of new cases. And as the number of new cases went down, things are not getting worse. Canadians are noting that as cases do pick up, Canadians have a big uptick right now, 71% saying that things are getting worse rather than better. And what this tells me is that Canadians are following. And I think we all know this anecdotally. Everybody knows the number of new cases every week, and as a result, they're very keenly aware of what's happening right now. Overall perceptions. This is the proportion who agree with the following statements. So 72% saying the current rise of cases was preventable. 71% saying most Canadians are doing a good job with taking precaution. 59% saying that the rise of the COVID cases as a failure on the part of Canadians. Closer to the 50-50 mark, 54% saying, I find taking precautions to be fatiguing. And we've seen this in our research as a constant theme as well. Optimism among half Canadians. I'm confident Canadians will be able to bring the COVID case down quickly. And it's time for things to go back to normal. And this is these last two, and the health risk of the coronavirus has been overblown. 26% is low, but that's still 1 in 4 saying, I think this is a big deal over nothing. And so these are those bottom two metrics. It's time for things to go back to normal, and the health risk of corona has been overblown. That also is something that mirrors the case count in Canada. So as the case count was going down, so was the proportion of people who said it's time for things to go back to normal, and also people just saying, listen, this thing's been overblown. As the case count goes up, these two metrics go up as well. So we ask in a slightly different way, what is it that you're more focused about? And really, that first slide that we looked at, where's your stress coming from? And you can see that we ask, are you more focused on the health crisis of the pandemic, or are you more focused on the economy? And you can see these are still pretty close, although it's clearly the health crisis that's more on people's minds. But you can see that 2 in 5 Canadians, 42%, saying that my main focus is the economy, not so much the health crisis, if I had to pick between the two. So let's talk about finances a little bit. We ask about concern about the Canadian economy, and we also ask about concern about personal finances. And again, we used a 5-point scale. We wanted to bring extreme into it because, again, this is an extreme event that is a little bit beyond the conventional scales that we've used in the past. So 56% saying that they're concerned about the Canadian economy. You can see that these metrics were at their highest in March and April, but it's slowly trickled down, and it's been pretty stable at around the 56% mark, and then for personal finances around the 28% mark. So 28% saying I'm very or extremely concerned about my personal finances. So, thinking about that in terms of that's 1 in 4 Canadians. 32%. That gray chart in the middle saying, I'm still concerned. It's not very or extreme, but I'm still concerned. So that's another third of Canadians. So it's really only the 32% and the 8% together saying, I'm not very or not at all concerned. So 40% saying it's not a problem. When we ask about personal finances since March, is it getting better? Is it getting worse? You can see that 29% say that their finances have worsened. Although some say that they've improved as well. So 22% saying that they've improved. To contextualize that 29% who say that that it's worsened, take a look at the chart on the right here where we ask, have you accumulated any new debt since March that's not related to the pandemic? That you would not have accrued if it hadn't been for the pandemic. So that's 28% saying that they've acquired new debt because of the pandemic. They wouldn't have ordinarily acquired that debt. So if you look at that number and you look back at the 29% who say my personal finances has worsened, it gives a little bit extra context there. It's not 29% saying, oh, I haven't saved as much money as I usually would like to. It's 28% of the population saying, I've accrued new debt because of this, so I'm going in the hole. So there's a lot of financial fragility that's happening. What are Canadians doing since the start of the pandemic? 34% saying that they're cutting back on spending, and we've done some other research to show that Canadians are really taking a good look at their budget and prioritizing, the nice to haves and the have to haves, and they're starting to get their finances in order. The other big one that pops out is the ensuring that there's a nest egg available, and now is the time that people need it as more and more Canadians are out of work and feeling the pressure. 1 in 5 saying that they've talked to someone at a financial institution. And then further down the list, I wanted to also point out a worrying trend that's up a little bit, cashing in TFSAs and cashing in RRSPs. So, the proportions are small, but that's still, a pretty major step that people would have to take. So this one I thought would be of particular interest. We ask about if someone was to tell you that they were thinking of doing the following, would you tell them it's a good time to do it, it's a bad time, or is it neither? Sell a house, buy a house, invest in real estate, make a financial investment in general, or start a business. And I'll start at the bottom, starting a business. If someone was to say, I'm interested in starting a business, then 7% are saying no, this is a good time, and 51% saying no, this is a really bad time to be doing that. So what are they doing with their time? It turns out that there's more time that's there's a pretty even split of the less time should actually be much smaller. It's 12%. That was charted incorrectly. 43% of Canadians have more time on their hands. And as I said, 12% say that they have less time on their hands. So this is a real change just in terms of leisure time. And part of it is, not having to commute and working from home and the free time that comes with that. Others are unfortunately laid off from work, and they have more time as a result of that. The one exception I would say is that the one group that does pop out in terms of having less time is parents of young children, and I think many of us know the reality of having to juggle work with childcare during the early months. So with all this new time, what is happening? And so we've been tracking the behavior over time, and the following is really prominent over the summer anyways. Therapy shopping, so buying things that you wouldn't normally buy, buying things you don't need online, that's happening a lot. Zoom calls, well, of course, the fact that we all know what Zoom is and that there's a term such as Zoom fatigue, that's been happening. Lots of online social media consumption, home improvement projects, that's going through through the roof right now. We know that some of the home hardwares and the Home Depots can't keep wood stock in store long enough. They're all competing for it. Overall media consumption, your Netflix, your cable TV, that lots of media consumption happening. Grocery services, the click and collect. People are cooking more at home. They're trying out new recipes, and they're also getting food services like the Uber Eats. So, however, while all that, especially the media consumption and the social media consumption and the therapy shopping was all happening increasingly, now that it's fall, we're noticing that these things are on the decline much more. Canadians are much more itching to get back to normal and get back to their normal lives and see if they can emulate that as best they can. In terms of what they're spending their money on, you can see that groceries has increased. Restaurant takeout, that has increased. But in terms of decreasing, dining in at restaurants, travel, of course, and clothing and fashion. And while I don't have it here, we also know that home improvement type stuff, that is something that has also increased dramatically. Are Canadians willing to go out? And so we ask, how do you feel about going out to the following? So grocery stores, retail, restaurants, malls, movie theaters, airports, live sporting events. And these are numbers that have changed pretty dramatically as things have gone up and down with the case count. Canadians have always been pretty open to going to grocery stores, and the next highest being the retail. So 27% saying I'm fine going to in shopping, 54% saying no, I would go, but cautiously, and then 19% saying like, no way, I'm not doing that. So restaurants being and malls being relatively equal, and then movie theaters, 66% saying that they would avoid it completely, airports 65%, and then live sporting events, 74% saying no way, I'm not interested. So I wanted to do a bit of a deep dive on what about visiting restaurants specifically, and have you done this in the last 2 weeks? And so you can see that there's sort of tiers to the data. The first two being takeout and drive-through. 73% saying in the last 2 weeks they've done takeout. 67% saying they've done a drive-through. You can see that. But you can see that additional proportion would still do it. 23% and 24% say, I haven't done it, but I would do it. The next tier is eating in for traditional restaurants. You add a patio or eating indoors. 28% saying they've done the patio, 33% saying eat indoors. Further down the list, eating at a patio or indoors at a fast food, QSR, or at a food court. Much more people saying that they would be unlikely to do that. In terms of feeling safe when you go into some of these places, you can see these are the proportion of Canadians who feel like the following are doing a good job at making them feel safe. And you can see that there's sort of a tiered approach at this. At the very top, it's the businesses that have been open since the start and that have had more time to prepare and have already made customers acclimatized to their environment because they have to go. Groceries and pharmacies. Next up, we have sort of an even band of retail stores, restaurants, hardware stores, banks. They're all doing a pretty good job. The next one down, coffee stores and convenience stores. These are the types of places where it has much more volume of traffic, and as a result, customers are feeling a little less safe. And then finally, hotels and airports. This is something that people are a lot less interested in doing these days. And it's not to say that anyone is doing a particularly bad job, but it's just that these are proportions who are doing a good job at this time. In terms of communications, is it okay to communicate? How do we do it? And you can see that we've been tracking a couple of perceptions. This is the wrong time for companies to advertise to me to buy their products and services at 42%. 33% saying, I don't want to see companies launching any new products or services at this time. Now, these proportions, what's more interesting about these numbers is how they've trended over time. And you can see that, beyond the first anxiety, you can see that this perception has gone down as the cases go down. And now that the cases have gone back up, it's these perceptions are going up as well. And I wouldn't necessarily say that the 42% are just that sensitive to the pandemic that they're saying that it's the wrong time for companies to advertise to me. It's probably more the fact that people just don't like advertising. If given the choice, every time is the wrong time. Don't leave me alone so I can watch my show. Can companies communicate with its customers? 48% saying, as long as the message is sensitive to the crisis, and it doesn't have to be, and we've done a lot of ad work and having to sort of reposition our ad work. It's not necessarily about, the early stages of, showing all the contributions that are being made or anything like that, but it has to be relevant to the current time. If it's about, somebody in a crowded, concert or venue or something like that, or a crowded restaurant, or people touching each other. Obviously, these things are not of our time right now. This is not what's happening. So it has to be relevant to what people are going through. 24% saying just do it the same way you always have. 23% saying just communicate products and services that people can use during the pandemic. And then 5% saying just don't communicate at this time. An important takeaway is don't sit this one out. And I know a lot of organizations are sort of wrestling with this. And so here's a few striking attitudinal statements. 79% agree that Canadian companies that take an active role during this crisis will have gained a loyal customer in me. 78% saying it's reassuring to hear from Canadian companies at this time. And 51% saying Canadian companies that do nothing during this crisis will lose a customer in me. So it's important that, even if we're not sure 100% of like the exact right way to do it, don't sit this one out. People will notice. And, earnestness and best efforts to address the crisis will be rewarded. And then lastly, in terms of the future, when are things going to get back to normal? What will it look like, and when will the pandemic end? So what does normal look like? Only 6% saying exactly the same way it used to be. It's not going to be like that. 40% saying, okay, there's going to be minor changes to how we live our lives. And then 47% saying major permanent changes to how we live our lives. So it goes to show again that this new normal, it is going to be a new normal. It's not back to normal. And that's how Canadians are feeling at this time. So, and this is something that we'll continue to monitor as the pandemic progresses, whether this is related to optimism or pessimism. But right now, people are anticipating that normal is changes. And when will that happen? If you look on the right-hand side, only 11% saying the next 6 months we're done with this. More people saying 33% saying 6 months to about a year. This is when the pandemic will end. But a greater proportion saying this is more like 1 to 2 years. But that seems to be the threshold. Very few saying 15% saying longer than 2 years. That seems like 1 to 2 years is our threshold, which is obviously a very long time to have to get through this. So lastly, we ask Canadians, when things go back to normal, what are you going to be doing more and what are you going to be doing less? And when it comes to doing this more, people are more interested in shopping local versus the national brands versus online brands. They want to connect with their community. A lot of people know of specific businesses in their neighborhoods that have gone out of business. So, and they feel that they haven't been able to support them enough. So they want to shop local. In terms of the new working environment, working from home and video calls that are business related, you can see that a lot of Canadians are saying, yeah, I'm going to be doing this more than I used to, and it's going to be a permanent part of my life. Same with online groceries. I mean, the click and collect wasn't really a thing before, and now we know that at least a quarter of Canadians, actually more than that, have at least tried it once, and many of these stores have worked out the kinks in the system to attract to make that a viable channel. In terms of what people are going to be doing less, you can see the further down the list on the blue side, 63% saying shake hands with people. This is a thing of the past. So this is a major cultural norm that we're seeing that may be going away permanently. So after that, no surprises, going to bars and clubs, that's the next one. People will be doing less of 54%. Same with air travel, attending popular events, vacation abroad. This is all very sort of thematic with what we've been talking about so far. Less people comfortable with taking transit or Ubers and Lyfts. And then also people saying video socializing with my friends. I want to be doing this less. I want to see my friends. I want to have more intimate gatherings with my friends at home. So that's really a quick guide through some of the public opinion data that we have so far. Some of the key takeaways or themes that we're seeing: Canadians are managing the stress. They're pretty stoic. They're pretty even about this. It's not going up and down every day, but there is an emotional underbelly, and especially from a communications point of view, if you ignore that's there, there's already been some prominent examples where people are feeling like some of the communications out there are especially tone deaf, and companies are getting reprimanded. Canadians have lots of time on their hands. There's a lot more than usual, and they're itching to get back to normal. So, finding an opportunity to create some sort of situation or introduce a situation where it feels like people can do something that feels normal will be vital. In terms of communication, again, we're not back to normal, and you don't have to, be overly sympathetic to COVID, because we've all been living with it and adapting to it, but it's not back to normal. It is a new environment, and any communication just has to be conscious of it, and it has to be reflective of it. It's not the way things used to be. Don't sit this out. If you're thinking about, we're going to wait for this to blow over, or we don't know exactly how to talk about coronavirus, engage. Test your ads, find a way to get more information, to find out how people are responding, but don't sit out. And then finally, some of the tracking graphs that I've been seeing on this particular issue have changed so dramatically compared to the work I used to do. I've never seen lines go up and down like this. The situation is constantly evolving. What held true in terms of what Canadians want and need or acting or feeling is not the same that it was a month ago. So it's important to keep evolving the way that you approach the market, and keep trying to find new ways to access that information about how Canadians are feeling. So that is the end of my presentation. As I said, this is something that we're doing on an ongoing basis. This is my contact information. Feel free to reach out to me through email or LinkedIn or whatever. I'll put you on the distribution list. It's no charge. We just want you to have the best information that you have to guide your organizations. And again, thank you to the Canadian Franchise Association for having me here today. And I'll send it back.
Thanks for listening. For more franchising resources, including how-to articles, expert advice, franchisee success stories, and franchise opportunities, visit franchisecanada.online. You can also learn more about franchising at cfa.ca and can connect with specific franchise opportunities at lookforafranchise.ca.